it properly. You have 3 layers with 3 different colors, you can easily visualize. But there is no cavity apart from digestive cavity when you see the very first diagram. So that's the reason flatworms, Platyhelminthes, they are not going to have, or they are not going to be placed into coelom kind of animals. They are all acoelomates. So you should understand this. This will help you remember your table that I have given you today. So if you want to know what are acoelomates, it should immediately click that acoelomates do not have any other cavity apart from digestive cavity, and that is the reason they are acoelomates. Pseudocoelomates, when you see this, you will find 2 cavities, one is here and one is here. Still it is pseudocoelomate because it is confusing. That's why it is false. Why it is confusing? Even though you find a second cavity over here, you are not finding any mesodermal layer here. There is no mesoderm. When you say true coelom, you are going to have mesoderm coming into existence. Now the mesoderm is present only here. The pink layer is here. It's not present on this side. It's directly yellow. So if it's present on 2 sides, like here, there is one pink layer here, one pink layer here. So in between the mesoderm, you have a complete cavity. That's the reason it is coelomate, and that's the reason it's confusing. So you name it as pseudocoelom because it gives you little glimpse that this might be coelom. It feels that it is coelom, but it's actually not coelom, and that is the reason you name it pseudocoelomate, right? So all your roundworms are going to have this particular condition, and after roundworms, when you move further into invertebrates from annelids onwards, you are going to have coelomate organisms. So till annelids, you don't have any kind of organisms which are possessing this. Yes, please. You didn't understand. Do you understand 3 layers? Ectoderm, mesoderm, endoderm. Okay. You can see the ectoderm is blue in color, mesoderm pink in color, and endoderm is yellow in color. Right? Now, if you want to make a true coelom, you should have the cavity which is layered on both the sides. If this is the cavity, this layer also should be mesoderm. This should also be mesoderm. Do you find 2 layers in the second figure? You don't find it. That's why it is pseudocoelomate. Okay. Here you see, you have the layer formed. This is pink layer, another pink layer. So you have one cavity in between 2 pink layers, that is mesoderm, and that is why it is true coelom. So true coelom is always formed by mesoderm, embryonic mesoderm. ओके वहाँ पे क्या होता है, एक्चुअली क्या होता है एम्ब्रियोलॉजी में कि यहाँ पे बाइफर्केशन अटक जाता है, इसके आगे बाइफर्केशन होता नहीं है इन ऑर्गेनिजम्स में, तो इसके आगे होगा नहीं, तो इसीलिए वो कंफ्यूजिंग रहता है, इसलिए हम इसको सूडोसीलोमेट्स बोलते हैं। ओके जबकि इसमें क्या होगा, इन ऑर्गेनिजम्स में एम्ब्रियोलॉजिकल स्टेजेस जैसे जैसे डेवलप होंगे, मेसोडर्म इज स्टिल फंक्शनल, इट विल स्टिल फॉर्म द लेयर एंड दैट्स हाउ द कैविटी विल बी फॉर्म, because the embryological stage has not stopped at this end, but here it stops the development of formation of the cavity. That's why this kind of differences come. So that's the reason I tell you all your answers lie basically into embryology. I've tried to cover few of the embryological concepts also. Let's see how far we can do it. Now it's clear? Okay. Now we don't stop the coelomate development here. These are not the only 3 types of coeloms available. Actually, there are few more, rather many more. Now, when you talk about coelomates, in coelomates also you are going to have 2 more groups, schizocoelomates and enterocoelomates. Now, when you say schizocoelomates and enterocoelomates, what does the difference, where does this difference lie? One thing is sure, you are talking everything with respect to mesoderm. Okay, so what happens here is that this particular mesoderm, when it is going to form the coelom, the cavity, it splits into this particular way. It's not forming the circle that we are seeing here. The pattern of formation of the cavity is different, and that is the reason when the pattern is different, you are giving it a new name, that is schizocoelomates. Okay, so schizocoelomates are one which have solid masses of mesoderm split to form your this particular coelom. And when you see here enterocoelus or enterocoelomates, you are going to have this enteron cavity which has grown a lot compared to this. Okay, this has grown a lot, and you can see your coelomic cavity is moving somewhere here. So that's the reason you name them as enterocoelomates. So in your coelomates group, you further have lots of variations. I have only chosen to give you two more because you can't go in so much details at the last moment of your exams. But at least these two names you should remember. And the third one is this archenteron. Archenteron is nothing but the primitive developing digestive gut. So that's what is developing here, because this is the one which is going to make that digestive tube at the end of the day of embryology. So you must remember these words because these are the ones which will come in your MCQs to confuse you. What is archenteron? What is enteron? When you say enteron with respect to coelentrates, you are talking about cavity once again, right? Here you are going to talk about with respect to digestive system. So all these words will be there into your MCQs. You need to understand the word and then select them. Fine. I hope this much is clear. Till here, anybody is having doubts with these two caesocoelomates and enterocoelomates? We'll go towards this, what is blastopore and all. I have taken few slides to make you understand this. Now, the two divisions that I had told you about previously, Bilateria is divided by few scientists into two divisions. Those two divisions are this: prostomia and deuterostomia. So it has lot of things to do with your division at the embryological level, whether they are having the coelom, the way we consider coelom to be, right? And that is why there is a difference, because this development of coelom is the same like this development of the coelom. So because of this reason, there is difference of opinion between the scientists. Okay, few scientists believe that when this is happening, how can you put the organisms into same group coelomates? You need to separate them. Put few into caesocoelomates, put the others into enterocoelomates, and that's why you have two more groups, and that is the reason you have these two divisions. Okay, protostomia and deuterostomia. These are the ones based on what kind of caesocoelomate or enterocoelomate conditions the organisms are going to have, right? Okay. Now going to your basics before we go further, because you need to understand what is gastrula and how this blastopore is coming and how these mesoderms are coming. So this is, I'm moving into a little part of your embryology so that you can understand where exactly blastula, gastrula and this coeloms and everything are coming from. You know about fertilization. You know you are going to have gametes for fertilization. When I say gametes means I am specifically talking about sperms and ovums, right? So if you are talking about female gamete, we generally talk about ova. If you are talking about males, we are talking about sperms. We also know that sperms are produced through spermatogenesis process, right? The ovum are produced through oogenesis process. Once this has taken, these two particular gametes are ready through your gonads. When you say gonads, you are talking about testes and ovaries. Okay, so ovaries and testes, when they prepare this particular gametes, the next step has to be fertilization. Now it will again depend on what kind of animal it is, whether it's choosing for sexual or it's choosing for asexual, because we are concerned presently with few of the concepts which are related more to the chordates. That's the reason I am taking up the sexual aspect. Okay, so when you are talking about sexual reproduction, you need to have a fusion of your gametes. Now when you do fusion of the gametes, you have the formation of a fertilized egg, which is what is zygote, right? So here in this slide you can see fertilized mouse egg, right? These are the two pro-nucleus which will be actually fusing up, so that it will be generating the further processes related to the development. Now what happens once fertilization is over? Now this is what you see here, the fertilization. This is all happening in the process of fertilization. But you actually also have two main types: internal fertilization and external fertilization, depending on the type of animal, whether they are going to release their gametes outside the body or give the gametes to the organism by mating process. Okay, so accordingly you will have internal, external, and then this fertilization occurs, zygote is ready. It doesn't stop here. Actual story of embryology starts with zygote. So once the zygote is formed, it will constantly undergo a process, all of these stages, which is known as cleavage. Now cleavage means what? Cleavage means simple multiplication. But this multiplication is not as simple as we think about the regular multiplication of cells, because here you are not going to increase the volume. You are going to have the same volume, but you are going to divide your zygote into many small cells. Okay. Now this condition, this particular cleavage has its own pattern. It happens in a very systematic way. It is not haphazard. उसको अच्छा लगा कर लिया, ऐसे नहीं. उसकी बहुत सारी पैटर्न्स होती है जो इनवर्टिब्रेट्स हैं ऊपर तक वेरी होगी, including echinodermates. You will find it in coelenterate also, but each of them they show different pattern of cleavage, different pattern of formation. जहाँ जहाँ पे भी sexual reproduction होगा, zygote formation होगा, cleavage होगा ही, but patterns will be different. It's not going to be the same, right? Cleavage formations, whatever cells are formed, they are known as generally this the last stage. ये जो सारे बताए हुए हैं यहाँ पे metameres and megameres and micromeres, जो छोटे वाले होंगे उसको micromeres बोलते हैं. The ones which are larger in size, they are going to be known as megameres or metameres. Now all these cells, this whole process goes into the even number. So you are going to have 2 cell stage, 4 cell stage, 8, 16, 32, 64, like that. And one fine time the cleavage will come to its topmost stage and you are going to have a ball which has lots of cells only, nothing more than that. That particular cell is what is ready for your blastula. So when you have a 16 cell stage over here, this is known as morula stage. When you move further from 16 towards hundreds, you are going to have blastula stage. Now when cleavage is happening in the furthermost steps, after 32 cells, it's going to start forming a small hole inside the cavity. It's just like your cricket ball. If you take a cricket ball and you cut it into many small cells, right? You are going to have one cavity within that cricket ball happening. So that cavity increases in size slowly when this whole cleavage process is about to end. And that cavity is nothing but your blastocele. So this is that cavity. So ultimately you have blastula stage, wherein you are going to have this particular blastocele cavity with inner cell mass. You are going to have a ball of lots of cells ready to undergo the next stage, and that is what is gastrula over here. Okay, I don't know whether you can read this all slides. Can you read this from back? Okay, this is blastula, which is having one cavity and it's having lots of cells surrounding it, which undergoes further stage which is known as gastrulation process. Now the most dynamic stage of embryology is gastrulation, because here the cells are going to change their position. You can have lot of cells moving from one side to the other, from the other side to the next side, because they are the ones to decide which particular layer they are going to be a part of, so that they can make organs further. So for that reason, gastrulation is the most important process, and it's one of the dynamic process. Why dynamic? Because it's very active. Why active? Because cells are moving. It's just not multiplication or something happening in a regular sequence, but you have a lot of cells movement over here in gastrulation. And over here you might also find the increase in size of this particular blastula ball. So that's what is happening here. The cells will constantly move. A very interesting aspect of gastrulation is, if you deliberately change the positions of the cells here, you will find wrong organs coming out from wrong body parts. So very many experiments have been done on salamander related to gastrulation, and scientists had changed lot of positions of the cells during the gastrulation aspects related to salamander development, and they have found that instead of the forelimbs growing at the forelimb side, they are growing behind, or the tail is growing in front, or the hind limbs are growing in front. So this kind of changes can happen if you change the position of the cells over here. And till blastula stage, you are going to have all your cells which are generally not knowing what they are made for. They don't know their functions. Afterwards, once they are into gastrulation process, they go further, they form 3 germinal layers. They know that now I am supposed to make which particular organ. Then they are going to be differentiated cells. So your stem cells are somewhere below the blastula stages. They are not above the blastula stages. Okay. Now all these stages will have little variation in the whole animal kingdom. But what happens further? When the cells are making movement, you can see here this particular portion is going inside. This is known as invagination process of the cells. The cells are moving inside this particular cavity, and one more cavity is created apart from the blastula cavity. Blastula is still there, but now blastula cavity size is reducing, and you have a new cavity formed known as gastrocele. So gastrocele is coming into picture, blastocele is reducing, cells are moving inside. Now the point from where cells are moving inside, that is known as blastopore. Now this has lot of things to do, because this will define in the later aspect from where the mouth of the organism will come, closer to it, away from it. So blastopore is very much commonly showing a characteristic difference between lot of organisms here. That's why I am showing you this particular slide, right? Going further, this all movements takes on and on and on, and you are going to have another cavity, which is what is your archenteron in the later stage of your gastrulation process. So now you have three, actually you have three cavities: blastocele, gastrocele, and now you have a primitive digestive gut, which is what you know as archenteron. So when archenteron is formed, there is nothing like blastocele existing anymore into that ball. It's totally gone. Okay, and when this will come, you have already the cells of your gastrula stage divided into three particular layers: mesoderm, ectoderm, and your endoderm. Three main layers. So you can see those three main layers here: mesoderm, ectoderm, and endoderm. These are the ones which are now ready to make further make your organs. Okay, so that's the reason these germ layers are very, very important, and that's how you divide your organisms into diploblastic and triploblastic organisms. Okay, so when you say you are having two germ layers in an organism, means it's a long procedure going from zygote to that of your gastrulation stage. In gastrulation stage, the cells are moving here and there and making three different layers. If they make three different layers, it's triploblastic organism. If they make two different layers, it's going to be your diploblastic organism. So that's how you have an evolution of diploblastic and the triploblastic layers. So you can see embryology is moving step by step at all the stages, and at each stage you have a new animal coming up. Whether you have a coelomate, acoelomate, you have diploblast, or you are having triploblast, it goes on and on. Now you see that particular chart, the last chart that I have shown you. Come back to this. Now in that you can see germ layers. Can you see the germ layers? Now in germ layers you have written diploblastic and triploblastic, and that then the very first square is empty. मिल रहा है आपको? वेरी फर्स्ट स्क्वायर इज एम्प्टी. क्यों? क्योंकि वो प्रोटोजुआ है. प्रोटोजुआ माने यूनिसेल्यूलर, तो उसमें डिप्लोब्लास्टिक ट्रिप्लोब्लास्टिक पॉसिबल ही नहीं है. ठीक है, वो यूनिसेल्यूलर है. मोस्ट प्रिमिटिव काइंड्स ऑफ माइक्रोस्कोपिक ऑर्गेनिज्म. सो यू हैव डिप्लोब्लास्टिक एंड देन ट्रिप्लोब्लास्टिक. डिप्लोब्लास्टिक इज देयर टिल योर टीनोफोरा. ओके, सो सिलेंट्रेट्स तक ऑल द ऑर्गेनिजम्स दे आर गोइंग टू बी दिस पर्टिकुलर डिप्लोब्लास्टिक वंस. फिर आगे जाओगे तो ट्रिप्लोब्लास्टिक मिलेगा. ठीक है, सो दिस इज हाउ यू हैव टू यूज योर चार्ट. वैसा ही सिमेट्री में देखो, रेडियल, बाईलेटरल, फिर नीचे है रेडियल, बाईलेटरल. अब ये याद रखोगे, उसके सामने का फाइलम याद रखोगे तो तुमको ज़्यादा कुछ मेहनत नहीं करनी है. और वो जो एक टैग लग गया है टैक्सोनॉमी को, बहुत बोरिंग है, समझ में नहीं आता, याद नहीं रहता है. इट्स जस्ट अ मैटर ऑफ 3 पेज. Is it clear? Right? Okay, I think there are few more guests who have come. We'll just stop the session here. I'll just quickly go once again through this blastulation, gastrulation stages. See, you have basically 4-5 different stages in embryology. One is that fertilization, then comes the cleavage, then comes blastulation, then comes gastrulation. Thereafter you come across morphogenesis and organogenesis process. When you say organogenesis process, you are talking about formation of the organs. So all the organs will be only formed if you have cells for it. So our basic purpose is, from one single zygote we want to have plenty of cells placed in groups so that we can make lots of organs out of it. and that is what is your developmental biology and embryology all about. So here in the previous slide you have this zygote, okay, undergoing cleavage. Cleavage can be of very many different patterns and types depending on the type of organism you are talking about. All these processes are happening in sexual reproduction only. It's not a part of asexual one. So those organisms undergoing sexual reproduction using gametes, having a fertilized zygote, they will always have cleavage pattern undertaken, and thereafter formation of the blastula part. Now when blastula is formed, what exactly you have? You are going to have your single celled zygote converted into, multiplied into plenty of cells, but the size of that zygote, that particular ball, is the same. It's not going to increase during cleavage. The apple, if you are taking an apple, you cut it from as many planes as possible, the size of apple is not growing. So that's what is all about cleavage. It's the main characteristic of cleavage happening, or multiplication happening during the time of cleavage pattern. Once that has occurred and you are having blastula, you are having a blastula with a blastocele, which is nothing but a cavity. It has lots of cells. The smaller ones are known as micromeres, the bigger ones are known as megameres. Now this can be equal also, it depends on what kind of cleavage has taken place. Okay, so this blastula doesn't stop here. It undergoes into a dynamic process of changing the positions of the cells, and that is what is known as gastrulation process, right? Now during gastrulation what happens is cells are also moving, and you are going to have this movement of the cells known by two particular major processes, but that is what is invagination. We technically in embryology use the words emboli, epiboli. Okay, so that's how the cells are moving inside. There is a pattern of movement. So that is having a different technical word. If you can't remember that, that's fine. But you need to know that during gastrulation, there is a movement of the cells going through one particular point, and that point is known as blastopore, from where the movement begins, right? And cells are changing its position. At the same time, this cavity, this is what is your blastocele. This one. This is reducing in size as cells are moving and new cavity is formed. That new cavity will be named as gastrocele because you are into the process of gastrulation. Okay, so gastrocele over here, it's not shown exactly, but then gastrocele will be formed later on, and you are going to have just a small remnant of this blastocele along with the gastrocele at the end, or when the process of gastrulation is about to end. At that time you are going to have two cavities formed. Again, this is not going to stop. It's going to go further, and you are going to have the development of this archenteron, that is your digestive cavity formed. At the end of this whole process of gastrulation, what you get is, you are going to get your digestive primitive gut, which is what is archenteron. Okay, you are going to have little remains of the blastocele. You are going to have obviously the blastopore over here, and you are going to have the most important, that is the three main layers, which we name it as germ layers: mesoderm, endoderm and ectoderm. Now when you say endoderm is always very much in contact with this particular archenteron, whereas when you say ectoderm, it's the outermost layer of the cells, and in between ectoderm and endoderm you are going to have one layer which is what is mesoderm. So ultimately three layers will be formed. Now why you name them as germinal or germ layers? Because all these cells are the ones which are going to form the organs in the further process, organogenesis. So because of that reason you name it as the germinal layers. They are not sufficient enough. They are further going to divide, further going to continue forming the organs. So now the whole shape will change. You are going to have one step ahead, which is known as primitive strip formation. Now I am not going in details of primitive strip, otherwise you will once again get confused here what exactly it means. But you need to know that you have a gastrula stage, wherein the ultimate result of that stage is formation of three important germinal layers. Now it might be two layers depending on the type of organism. If at the end of gastrulation the organism forms only two layers, then those organisms will be listed, labeled as diploblastic. And if you are having at the end formation of three, then they will be labeled as triploblastic. And we have already seen in the chart which are the diploblastic and which are the triploblastic. So you need to remember now from where the triploblastic organism starts until where you are going to have diploblastic organisms. These are general characters. It's not difficult to remember the characters. It's the only thing, you don't go systematically to understand the characters. Otherwise, every time you have to use these main points only. Symmetry, body organization, you talk about different life processes, you are talking about the habitat, the germ layer. These many things if you consider, you will have all the characteristics listed in front of you related to that group of organisms, right? So this is all about Gestula. I think now is it clear? Last bench. And this is what is diploblastic and triploblastic. Once again we have discussed this, so not discussing further about it. Archenteron, because the term is very much confusing and the students get confused with coelom and archenteron and enteron and all. That's why I have just taken a small definition of this archenteron, that it is the digestive tube. It is the most primitive gut from where your whole digestive tract is going to develop. So it's all about developing the digestive tract basically. Blood cavity, or rather you have the cavity filled with blood, which you generally see in arthropods. Now you know that this is hydra, you are talking about coelenterate. Where is arthropod and where is coelenterate? So obviously hemocoel is not going to be your answer. Now see, many a times it will happen. So if you don't know the terms, you won't be able to justify which answer to be selected. Okay, and that is why you need to know each of these particular terminologies. Now coelenteron, you know it's hydra, and all your coelenterates are going to have an enteron, rather a special kind of cavity. Actually coelenterates word came from enteron, coelenteron. That's why they were named as coelenteron, right? So here the answer is going to be coelenteron, but let me explain you the two more terms. Pseudocoel, it is about coelom. We are not talking about any kind of enteron here. Okay, you are not talking about your digestive cavity, you are talking about your coelom. Now pseudocoelomate, they possess pseudocoel, right? And that is the reason over here you don't have the application of pseudocoel. So that's why that answer cannot be considered. And enterocoel, going back to your previous slides, the two slides that I had shown you, enterocoelomates and schizocoelomates. So if you know enterocoelomates, then you know what is enterocoel. Then you can select the correct answer. So that's the reason you need to know the basics. If you know all the terminologies, it becomes easy to understand and choose the correct answer. So enterocoelomates are the ones to possess enterocoel. Now if you know that enterocoelomates have echinodermates and chordates only, you very well know that hydra is nowhere going to be over here, right? So it justifies that you need to select in that question coelenteron only. So that's how your body cavity of hydra will be known as coelenteron. Another one, which one of the following is characterized by the absence of true coelom? Now this should be very easy. You have the chart, you can look into it and tell me. Nematoda. Okay, I told you that Aschelmantis might not always be written as Aschelmantis. They might also be labeled as phylum Nematoda. So you need to know that Nematoda is the one which is the group of roundworms. So even the loose words you should be able to make out. Roundworms belong to nematodes, flatworms belong to Platyhelminthes. This should be clear, right? So here the answer is going to be nematodes. Now one more concept is levels or grades of organization. Now if you have seen your chart properly, you have organization as the very second word. You need to know what is the kind of organization available to your body system. Unless and until you don't know this, it becomes difficult to go inside the life processes, and that is the reason grades of or levels of organization will help you judge lot of things. When you don't have a body with organ system, you cannot expect some particular organ over there into your MCQs belonging to that animal. So if you know which grade it belongs to it, you can have a judgment whether it's going to have certain tissues, it's going to have certain cells, it is going to have certain organ system or not. Now if you are talking about a small amoeba and you are having an MCQ related to amoeba with respect to tissue grade, it is useless because there is nothing like tissue grade in amoeba. Now how do you know this? Because you know that amoeba belongs to protoplasmic acellular body grade, and that's the reason understanding and going thoroughly through this chart is very important. If you will see in the chart, the very first is protoplasmic organization, and there is only one group to it, that is protozoa. Okay, so whenever you have protoplasmic organization, when you say acellular, it means you are talking about one unicellular organism wherein protoplasm plays all the roles. So there is no existence of any system here. You can't expect any organs here. What you can expect is the cell playing the whole role for all the system, whether it is digestion, excretion, whatever. And if you remember your amoeba structure, you will find vacuoles in it, food vacuoles, contractile vacuoles. They are the ones who do this particular function of digestion of food, releasing the excretory waste. All this is being carried down by them. Why? The reason is it's just one single cell protoplasmic organism, and that's why you name it of the grade of acellular kind. You are not going above. Then comes cellular grade. Now in cellular grade, you are going to have your poriferans, particularly at cellular level. When you see poriferans like sponge or leucosolenia, you will find group of cells over there. They are multicellular, right? But then you are not going to have any specific tissue formation, and that's why you label them as cellular organization. It doesn't go at the tissue level. Who goes at tissue level? Coelenterate. Cnidarians go at tissue level. Okay, when you see Cnidarians, Hydra and all, you're going to have specific tissue formation over there. So that's why it is cell tissue organization. Now with each of the complexity increasing, you have the evolution happening. You're going to have more complex organisms coming. The capacity of the organisms is also increasing in terms of survival rate, okay, because or rather in terms of facing the external environment. Okay, their body is helping them more, and that is one reason when you move from protozoa to mammals, in mammals you restrict only to sexual reproduction because they are not vulnerable to problems related to atmospheric or climatic changes. Whereas if you go to amoeba, protozoa, you are going to have long list of asexual and sexual reproduction modes. The reason is amoeba is more vulnerable to your atmospheric changes. So, and that is the reason you just don't you're going in a sequence actually. You're not just putting mammal first and then putting amphibian and then putting reptile. It's not there. You go in a sequence. You start with always protozoa in any book. Whenever you read reference, it starts with protozoa, it will end with echinodermate because it's following the grades. It's going towards from lower to the higher development, and that is the reason all of them, they have a specific reason to be placed one after the other. That is what is we call phylogenetic arrangement, right? So here you are going to have cellular and cell tissue kind of organization. Then comes the tissue organ system or tissue organ grade of organization, which you will find it with number of them. For example, your ctenophores, thereafter the platyhelminthes, they are all going to be into this tissue grade organization, and obviously organ system, all your higher chordates, they are going to be the ones which consider this organ systems. So that's how levels or grades of organization is very important. What we consider here is this number of cells and the degree of complexity, or how many specialized cells are available and how many tissues it is forming. Accordingly, you put them into different grades, and that's how you are going to have grades or levels of organization. Apart from this, there is one more concept, that is metamerism. Segmentation of the body or dividing the body into segments. So what exactly this means? So we are talking about segmentation generally in bilateral animals. We are not into the radial kind of animals. So whenever you have an MCQ related to metamerism, it should click to you that you have to switch yourself into bilateral organisms and forget about the radial organisms, because they are never going to show you metamerism. It's all about bilateria. Okay, so those organisms, they are going to divide themselves into linear series of similar sections. lots of parts will be formed in a longitudinal division of the body, and those each parts or each segment, that's going to be known as somite, or they are also known as metameres. So metameres or somites will be formed in the whole body, and this whole thing, this whole phenomenon is known as metamerism. So metamerism, again, segmentation of the body again is very important. Now if you go to the lower groups, there is not segmentation, but there is definite division of the body. For example, arthropods. If you go to arthropods, you will always find a characteristic that it is divided into three parts: head, trunk, tail, or it's divided into cephalothorax, abdomen and tail. Okay, so this is how you divide your body part. But over here, metamerism doesn't mean that. When you say you're talking about body division, it is different, and when you say you're segmenting the body, it is different. You're segmenting the body in two ways. First of all, you're making a linear series. Secondly, you're dividing it into equal parts. You're not having unequal groups of segments here. You're having all equal groups of segments. The segments are going to be almost equal in sizes. So that's what is metamerism and segmentation, which you will see best in your earthworm annelids. They show you the best metameric segmentations, internal as well as external. Now this also has many types, like you have incomplete metamerism, complete metamerism, external metamerism, internal metamerism, which will be different as per the type of the organism you need to study, right? But you do have variations in how metameres are being formed. Even we are considered to have a metameric body, but then that definition doesn't go with this. Okay, our definition of dividing our body into segments doesn't go with this particular definition, but you can always say that mammals have metamerism. Okay, so there is going to be difference according to the 3 or 4 main types of metamerism which are available. Now your question, pseudo metamerism or strobilization or annulation, it is seen in which organism? What is pseudo metamerism? Pardon? Strobilization, have you heard? These are all the same ones. When you say strobilization, it's pseudo metamerism, and when you say annulation, it is once again the same. Pardon? External, to some extent, external metamerism, and strobilization is very common with tapeworm. Have you seen tapeworms? So when you see tapeworm, you know it's having a very small, tiny scolex. The head part is very small, very pin kind of. Now that particular portion is known as scolex, which is having hooks and suckers and all those things. And then the body, the ribbon-like body starts. Now that ribbon-like body, if you have ever drawn tapeworm, you will always find that there are squares arranged. Those squares are nothing but those are known as strobila. You can't name them, as you can never obviously say squares. But that is how you actually draw. You will draw some small sized ones, then you will draw some bigger ones at the end of the tapeworm. The reason is the bigger ones are the mature strobila, and that is why it is pseudo metamerism, because in metamerism you will generally never have larger metameres and smaller metameres. All are going to be same. It's not going to be like few are no different in size and the other few are different in size. But here it's going to be different. In case of tapeworm, when you're talking about strobila, you are having some immature segments wherein still the reproductive organs have not developed. It remains undeveloped. But when you are going to talk about the major, huge, larger segments of the body, which you generally name it as annules, okay, that's why it is annulation. So when you are talking about that, those particular ones are having very mature, this ovaries and very mature testes, so that it can actually do the function of reproduction. And those are being separated from the body many a times. Even though they are separated, they can do their function of reproduction, and they are known as gravid proglottids. So gravid proglottids are nothing but those matured strobilas which are having all the organs mature in case of tapeworm. And that is the reason these are pseudo metameres and these are not your actual metameres. So if you see now in this chart, here also you are going to find out metamerism available. Segmentation, can you see segmentation? That is nothing but metamerism. If you see that it's written A at number of places. A means absent. Now this chart is particularly talking about invertebrates, and that is the reason you will find that majority groups it's not there. But when you see annelids, it's plus. So now if somebody asks you a question, from which phylum metamerism phenomena begins, you have to write its annelid. So you should know that it is from the annelid group metamerism begins. Or if you have a question wherein you are being given 4 options of animals. Now if you have 4 options of animals given wherein some option is coming from the animals below this annelid group. Maybe they are given some names from Platyhelminthes or Coelenterate, and then one annelid is kept, and then thereafter directly one mammal is kept, and then you are being asked to judge that out of these 4 animals which animal shows metameric segmentation. Then you should be clear that all the animals which are below annelid group, they are never going to show metamerism. So you don't have to remember that those organisms, you don't have to judge. It's only you have to remember is that from annelids it starts. That you should remember. Then your MCQ becomes easy for you. Okay, so that's how you have to recollect this particular chart when you are solving your MCQs. And it's very, very important to understand these all basic 4, 5, 6 concepts that are given here. Now same way you see the digestive tract. When you will see the digestive tract, you will find the word incomplete without anus. Can you read that? Incomplete without anus. And that goes till your Platyhelminthes. Right? Now incomplete digestive tract means what? It means that you are going to have only one opening, that is mouth. You have nothing like an anus available. So that is what is known as incomplete digestive tract. Right? Now that's available with how many groups? Till Platyhelminthes you are going to have that incomplete digestive tract. Thereafter you are going to have complete with anus. Okay, and then if you read little bit further, you will find complete with anus and protostomach. Why protostomach? Because we divided them into those 2 groups. So you have these nematodes. From the nematodes, the protostomach group, that change in coelomic cavity is coming. We are concerned with the coelomic cavity because we are also concerned with that digestive tract. That's why they have mentioned it here. So if you thoroughly understand this chart, it becomes really easy for you to undergo this particular complete information of taxonomy in a very short period of time. It's never difficult to undertake taxonomy. It's just that you don't put your efforts into. If you put the efforts into, you're really going to find it very easy. And it's a lifelong understanding. एक बार समझ गए तो कभी भी taxonomy पूछेंगे प्रॉब्लम नहीं होगा, वो कोई भी एग्जाम में आएगा. एंड taxonomy बेसिकली आता ही है. नेट में जाओगे तो नेट एग्जाम में भी आएगा. wherever you will go, even with lots of exams related to abroad, if there is a life science exam, these are the most common questions coming from zoology. You need to understand the basics of your taxonomic aspects, right? Now you see the excretory organs. In that you can see number of the phylum wherein it's written A, and then it's written PS. Can you read that? PS. So that is pseudocoelom. You can find the short forms written below, right? So that is what is pseudocoelom is playing the role for excretion, right? And then you can see one more term, that is LO, lophophorate coelomate. Now this is a new term, lophophorate coelomate. What do you mean by this? The way we had seen those previous ones, schizocoelomates and enterocoelomates. Okay, you have one more term, that is lophophorate coelomates. Actually, lophophores are a group of organisms. They are going to have special tentacle-like structures. The way you have cilias, they are going to have tentacle kind of structures, and those structures are going to cover completely the mouth. So mouth is totally surrounded by some kind of fibrous kind of moving tentacles, and then the whole body structure will start. Now these organisms are labeled as lophophorates. and the coelomic cavity is also going to be the one which has this kind of lophophores. They are not known as tentacles, they are generally known as lophophores. So lophophores are possessed by this particular coelomates, and that's why they have a special name, lophophoric coelomates. So you need to know that there is a change in coelomic cavity when you are going away from your moving towards your annelid, going away from nematodes, and that's why that LO is written. Thereafter you can see SC, that is schizocoelom. Okay, તમે એમાં જ આગળ વાંચો excretory organs માં, so again you will have that SC and EN, that is enterocoelom. Can you make out? Right? Fine. Thereafter you have one more word, that is flame cells. In case of certain cases in coelom, platyhelminthes માં જો so coelom ના section માં તો FC વંચાશે મળ્યું, that is flame cells. Now flame cells are the excretory units. Okay, flame cells are the cells which are having cilia. Okay, so it is actually a cell which has we shouldn't say actually cilia because it's one or two only. It's present within, inside the body, and it's constantly flickering. It flickers, it keeps on moving constantly. Unfortunately I have removed that slides. I had a photograph of it, maybe if somebody wants to see it I can show later on. But then you have these cells which are having cilia kind of projections which are constantly flickering, they keep on moving. The way you see a candle, when you burn a candle, you see the flame of the candle, it's little flickery. So that kind of flickering movement is seen within the cell, and that's why the cell is named as flame cell. Technically it is a protonephridia. Nephridias, you know, nephridias are also excretory units, right? Found in which group? Earthworm, that is annelids, right? But flame cells are protonephridias. So protonephridias are the ones, actually technically you have to use that term, but because of this kind of flickering movement of the cell, these cells are known as flame cells. So many a times you don't have a complete system of excretion, but you are just going to have a network of this kind of flame cells available which will do the purpose or solve the purpose of excretion within that body. So that is what is present in this platyhelminthes and all these groups wherein rotifers and all which are having flame cells within it. But it's not present when you see below groups, it's not going to be the flame cells. So whenever you are moving further, you are going to have the development of the systems coming up, particularly towards arthropods and all. Okay. Then circulatory system. In circulatory system you can see almost everywhere very few plus signs are there, and the plus signs are all somewhere near the molluscans, starting from the molluscans. Till that you are not having many of the organisms showing you presence of circulatory system. Okay. Now in case of molluscans, these molluscans are the ones which are having typical kind of circulatory system which you can see when you are injecting some chemical from outside, because the blood is going to be blue in case of many of the molluscans. So if you really want to see the circulatory system, you need to inject some ink within the body and then you have to dissect and then you can see the whole structure. Otherwise you will never be able to find out where exactly the circulatory system is. But it's very primitive beginning of the circulatory aspect over here, right? Now we know in arthropods that arthropods have hemocoel, right? So hemocoel is the one wherein your fluid is going to mix up with the coelomic cavity filled up with the blood, right? What happens is that even though you are saying it has so many vessels, then too you are saying it's open because the vessels are interacting with the cavity. They are not interacting amongst themselves, okay, and they are not the only carriers of the material. They are interacting with the material present inside the cavity, and that's why you name it as open circulatory system. So always that definition that closed circulatory means closed vessels होते हैं और open में vessels नहीं होते हैं, वो हमेशा true नहीं होता है. अभी वो concept clear होना चाहिए, क्योंकि वैसे तुमको confusing questions आएंगे तो तुमको फिर तब पता चलना चाहिए कि नहीं हर बार वो हमारी डेफिनेशन काम नहीं करती है. ओके, यू शुड एग्जैक्टली नो व्हेन यू आर सेइंग दिस काइंड ऑफ वर्ड्स. right? So here also you have, as you have incomplete, complete digestive tract, you have two types of circulatory system, open system and closed circulatory system, right? So that is what is with your circulatory. And with respiratory system, see, system is present once again. If you will see all the systems in this chart, they are almost present in the lower groups. It's not present in the upper groups. And that is the reason these upper groups are known as lower invertebrates. They are labeled as lower invertebrates. In invertebrates also we divide the invertebrates into two major groups. One are higher invertebrates, which will show you the presence of, which will start showing you the presence of development of different systems to some extent. Whereas in lower ones you will not find anything. You are just going to have certain particular organs, you are going to have few particular systematic arrangement of the organs utilized for your functioning of the body, that's it. But you won't find a complete system playing role for that particular physiological process. So that's why lower invertebrates and higher invertebrates, right? And that difference is also given on your second page, middle page. There are two tables. You can see the upper table. You will find one contrast between lower and higher invertebrate group, right? So this you should read before you go for your exams. And this lower table, which gives you the technical differences between invertebrates and vertebrates, that you can read. Now here this non-chordates and chordates are loosely utilized, okay? So that time you should realize that these words placed here are very loosely utilized, fine? But it will basically give you all the differences that are present with invertebrate and vertebrate. This will make your judgment and your logic strong for your MCQs. Once you have a very clear logic, you can select the best option available, because many a times you will find that in your MCQs all are correct, all are closed. Now what to do? How to select? At that time your concepts play the role. You have to find out the answers using these things during that particular moment. That whether it belongs to this, okay, it's not this, fine, then I can select this. So you are not going haphazard, you are going in a very scientific way, right? So that is all about your little taxonomy. I have not covered anything more. All the best for those who are appearing in the exams, and all the best to those who will appear someday in some exams. Right? That is it. Any questions if you have, you can just keep on asking. Pattern of cleavage. वो पर्सनली करें, क्योंकि उसमें मुझे डायग्राम दिखाना पड़ेगा, इसमें नहीं होगा. उसमें एग्स का कंडीशन देखना पड़ेगा. सी जनरली क्या होता है, whenever you have cleavage, you have an egg which is having yolk. Okay, so yolk is generally settled below. And ऊपर का जो layer होगा वो empty होगा. Now that will, it depends on the type of the eggs you are generally talking. So what happens is you have basically 4 or 5 different types of eggs, depending on the condition of yolk present in it and how it is distributed. Whether it is lying below, it is seated below, or it's distributed, well distributed throughout the egg, or it is totally filled up, only ऊपर का वो embryo disc बचा है और पूरा भर दिया है, कैसे है. तो क्या होगा कि जब भी क्लीवेज होना है तो क्लीवेज ऑल्सो यूजेस पैटर्न. तो जब वो प्लेन्स यूज़ करेगा तो प्लेन अंदर तक जा नहीं पाएगा, तो पूरा डिवीजन नहीं होगा. अगर आपके पास बहुत ज़्यादा योग है तो ऊपर ही डिवीजन होगा, नीचे का योग ऐसे का ऐसा ही रहेगा. एंड दैट इज़ वेयर यू विल हैव heteroblastic cleavage. इफ़ यू आर हैविंग इक्वल डिवीजन, यू आर गोइंग टू हैव holoblastic cleavage. वो उसमें बहुत सारे स्टेजेस हैं. दैट्स व्हाई आई एम सेइंग इट्स नॉट पॉसिबल टू कवर each of them over here, but you can use there is very good book embryology, chordate embryology by P.S. Verma. You can just go into that book. There are very many good diagrams. Further reading if you want to do, you can use Gilbert, embryology by Gilbert. That book is also very good for your basics of embryology. It will cover up all the comparative aspects of animal science. And whenever you are appearing in entrances, don't just read phylum, read comparative aspects. Okay, you never come across comparative studies of the animals, and that's the reason it becomes difficult for you to understand and find out the correct answer. What you should technically do is take systems and go through each system from protozoa till that of mammal in a comparative way. When you do like that, you come to know that what is the state of that system in each of the phylum, and then it becomes easy for you to understand कौन से organs है, कैसे काम करता है, किसमें क्या है, किसमें कौन सी चीज़ नहीं है वो सिस्टम की, तो वो आपका क्लियर हो जाएगा. पहले initially when we used to teach old syllabuses used to have comparative this kind of anatomy and physiology and all. Unfortunately अब नहीं है, but books are there. You can go through the books and find out and do a comparative study of this systems into the animal kingdom. That will make you more stronger in appearing in the exams, wherein zoology is one of the key portions, right? Okay, anything else?